Now, I happen to have a glimpse because my clients share with me. It's like, I know the depths and the
Mhm.
pain and the grief processing that we went through before that decision was made in order
Right.
to go no contact. But people on the outside won't. So they'll just assume, oh, that's just another trend. And so to your question, I think that it was here. I do think that it does change generation over generation. I do think we come from a generation of we don't talk about emotions. Like there's no time to be sad. Just buck up. You got
Right.
this. Just push through.
Mhm.
And it worked, and it works until it doesn't.
Welcome to Take Back My Brain with Laurie Hammer, where real healing starts in the brain. I'm Laurie, a functional nutritionist and mom who's walked the path from anxiety and burnout to clarity and calm. Each week, we're going to dive into brain-based tools like amino acid therapy, gut health, fasting, and faith to help you reclaim your energy, emotions, and sense of self. My goodness, you are going to love today's podcast because we're going to talk about gratitude of self. I know you're like, what in the heck are you talking about? How can you be gratitude for yourself? And we're also going to dive into a little bit of trauma-informed therapy and how to navigate all those things because Kamini is my guest today, and she believes the nervous system will always choose protection over performance. And so we're going to dive into that. So make sure you stay to the end because we are going to talk about things that, well, probably none of you have ever heard on this podcast or maybe even another one. So, Kamini, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it is great to have you. I'm excited for this conversation. Tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and how did you get into, trauma-informed therapy and all those kind of things?
Yeah. So, well, a little bit about me. First of all, from a personal perspective, I am the mom to five.
Aw,
My
that's great.
oldest is 24. My youngest is 12. So they're, when people ask me, what's your why? They're my why. I also have two little doodles. So also
Those are
mom to
cute too.
dogs.
Yep.
But professionally, I'm a coach, but I really work with people one-on-one. I generally work with high functioning, high achieving individuals, teenagers, all the way through adults,
Mm.
helping them understand themselves on that relational level so that they can recognize patterns. I call myself a pattern interrupter because we're recognizing patterns that may have served them in the past, but no longer serve them. They're keeping them stuck or keeping them in some type of cycle that's no longer moving them
Mhm.
forward. And so that's really what I say that I do is I help them interrupt those patterns, notice them, interrupt them, and then how are we going to shift them in order to build the life that they want, whether professionally or personally.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Okay, so high performing, high achieving. Are we talking like type A personalities? Are these people that have like how would you define that?
That's such a great question because I think the natural is to go with type A personality. I mean,
Yeah.
I own it. I'm a type A personality. Although I definitely work with high achieving people who are kind of laid back. We would maybe if I met them on the street, I'd be like, wow, you're kind of more like a type B. However, so when I say high achieving, high performing, what I'm actually referring to is the high functioners that I'm
Mm.
fine. I'm gonna keep pushing through, gonna keep going. They are very dependable individuals, right? They've always
Mhm.
will figure it out. They're the ones who are going to handle the schedule. So they're my overfunctioners. They're the ones who are constantly doing and they achieve something, but then they go on to the next thing. So they don't always have to be a type A. It's more
Mhm.
about nexting. It's, and I've accomplished this. And instead of even taking a moment to acknowledge what they just accomplished and who they were being as they accomplished that, they're on to the next thing.
Right. What do you think facilitates that? That over functioning it's just I don't want to say like it's never enough, but it's like, okay, now like you just have to move on, which is not always a bad thing, but
Right.
sometimes it doesn't serve that individual well.
Yeah. And so what I have started to recognize is it's actually a lot of times it's a fawn response. So we talk a lot about, fight, flight, and freeze, but not a
Mm.
whole lot of conversation has happened around fawn and fawning. And that is also a survival
When you say
mechanism, right?
fawn,
It's
like
a
FAWN fawn.
FAWN. Yes.
Okay.
It's a relational survival mechanism. And what
Okay.
I often see with people who have that tendency, right? The over functioning, the over giving, if we can unpack it just a bit, a lot of times that came as a survival mechanism, right? If I
Mm,
overfunction and I overgive, it keeps things at peace.
mhm,
It keeps us from having conflict. It keeps people happy. It keeps things moving along. And that creates a sense of safety. And so I've actually been
mm.
talking a lot more about this, not just with my clients, but even as I've been researching more about fawning, because myself, I say that there's a part of me that's a people pleaser. There's a part of me that's
Oh,
a perfectionist.
me too.
And I recognize like, wow, that's actually me fawning. It's me trying to stay safe, because if I people please and I'm making sure that person over there is happy, then it creates safety within me, because now I don't have to worry about conflict.
Right. And do you feel like people who are in the space that you and I are in, the coaching, the wellness space, those all those kind of things, therapy, maybe tend towards that?
I actually see it a lot. Yes. I mean, I do think that it's so much, it's so common. And I think oftentimes too, from a social perspective, being the person who's reliable, being the person who gets things right, being the
Right.
person who keeps things flowing, being the person who, somewhat people pleases, make sure everybody's happy. They're actually celebrated. And
Mhm.
so there's almost like a reaffirmation when we do show up that way.
Right.
But I do think
Right.
our space is filled with that, because I think caregivers and those of us who are in the helping space, we already are predisposed to showing up for others. I think,
Right. It's just kind of
yeah,
built into us
yeah,
from a
yeah,
very, very early age, if not, in the womb kind of thing. I mean,
right.
we're all created to serve each other, right? So that's just kind of, basic, hopefully human instinct for most people is we want people to, delight in us. We delight in them. God
Right.
created us to, live in community and to serve each other. So
Yeah.
that's all beautiful and good. It's just when you take it to that next level
Yes.
that can
Yes.
get a little dysfunctional, and it doesn't serve maybe you, your family, those people around you, and it kind of enables maybe you're enabling somebody or that type of
Yeah.
fawning kind of, keeps you from and reaching where God has put you or wants you to go. Like we think we're
Right.
striving and we're moving to the next thing, but a lot of times it's linear and not trajectory.
Yes. Yes. And you just made such an amazing point. We are meant to be that for each other, right? We are meant to be in community and in connection. And when I'm talking to people about reducing that fawning, right? Reducing the overgiving. It's not about becoming uncaring
Mhm.
or becoming selfish. It's not that at all. It's just to your point that you said before, when we lean too far into it, it starts to stifle us. It starts to become a detriment. And I say that about a lot of our strengths, right? We
Oh
have these
yeah.
strengths, but if we lean too far into it, it can become a weakness. I own it. When I lean too far into my empathy, I now take on responsibility for somebody else and fixing it. And so
Right.
it's for me, it's this balance of, yes, Kamini, you are empathetic, you are with that person, and also holding a self boundary around knowing where I end, right? Where I end, they begin, so that they still have their own agency.
Right, right. And I think that's so key. And I think that goes back to the quote that you had posted. The nervous system will always choose protection over performance. And I think maybe part of that fawning is protection.
100%. Yes. It's the nervous system saying, okay, this feels unsafe. It's the default. We're going to keep us safe. How are we going to keep us safe? We're going to fawn. We're going to make this better. We're going to overfunction. It's not a cognitive thing. It's
Mhm.
all becomes part of like just our being. We're on autopilot doing it because the nervous system is built to make sure that we survive.
Right. So how are you helping people disrupt that or shift that?
And shift it. Yeah. So the very first thing is, first of all, people need to recognize. I say, let's start at square one, which is recognize when your body, your nervous system is going into survival mode, because most of us don't even know it. So it's actually scanning the body and paying attention to when something shifts within us. Like for me personally, I feel it in the pit of my stomach
Yeah.
immediately. There's tension, and I'm like, oh gosh, I feel super unsafe right now. So that's step number one. We've got to become aware of when we're even in that space. And then then we can move into a more cognitive place of saying, okay, we actually tell the amygdala, right? We actually name it. I'm actually safe right now. Nothing is happening. Like nothing that my survival is not in question, because we've
Hmm.
got to somehow pattern interrupt. And then with the fawning, it is making micro changes to, setting certain boundaries of, I'm going to pause before I say yes. I'm going to pause before I act, right? Be able to create some space between what the stimulus is really that we're talking about, and then how we respond to it. And it's in that space. This goes back to Viktor Frankl's quote, right? Between stimulus and response, there's a space. It's really using that space to say, okay.
Hey, friend, just a quick break to remind you, if calming your brain is the missing piece in your practice or in your home, my Mind Thrive certification course teaches you exactly how to do that with targeted amino acid therapy. So it's real science, real results, no Band-Aids. Enrollment is now open. Link is in the show notes. So back to the show.
What would work for me and what won't work for me? That's that whole boundary piece. And fawners really need to spend some time with those self boundaries.
Right. That is so good. There's so much talk right now about, we keep using the word, feeling safe and, protection and nervous system regulation. And there's lots of those buzzwords going on. And I know there'll probably be a lot of people listening that, I was born in the 70s, so 1973. I'm a product of the 80s and 90s. And we didn't hear about that stuff then. Like you just made it through life. We drank out of the garden hose. We flew off of merry-go-rounds. There was no trauma-informed therapy. There wasn't nervous system regulation, all those things. And so sometimes, as those buzzwords are running around, I often wonder, are we creating something that's not there? Or are we just labeling it different? Like, different generations look at things differently. And so I would love for you to maybe help us unwind, has this always been here or is this something new?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Because I'm from the generation, you just push through it, you just do it and you move on with life.
Same.
Right?
Totally.
Right.
Absolutely. I come from we drank from the garden hose. We left the house and our parents didn't know where we were until we showed back up.
And we were good. Everybody, we were all like, yeah, I'm fine. And, maybe our children or our friends would be like, I don't know that you are. There may be some things there that you need to address.
I love the fact that you're bringing that up because I actually recently made a post about this too, because I do think that there is this idea that some of what we're saying is like pop psychology or it's become trendy.
Yeah.
And my take on it, and I know that there'll be people who disagree with me, which of course that makes sense, right? Because we all have the right to our own opinion. I think that we finally have words for it and we actually take the healing part out when we label things as trendy and we just say, oh, that's pop psychology. And I want to expand on that for just a second. So, we only know things from our own experiences and our own reality. And so as an example, and this has come up with multiple of my clients who have had to, for the sake of their own well-being, maybe go no contact with a parent as an example. And I know online there's been a lot of discussion around this topic. And some feedback that I've even gotten on some of my posts is, well, it's a trend. And I hear that and I respect that perspective, but I say that that's a perspective. I think what happens is we start to make judgments, and we're human. We're going to have our own judgments, but we make judgments from our experience and we forget that we don't have the inside scoop to someone else's experience. We don't know what they went through. Now, I happen to have a glimpse because my clients share with me. It's like, I know the depths and the pain and the grief processing that we went through before that decision was made in order to go no contact. But people on the outside won't. So they'll just assume, oh, that's just another trend. And so to your question, I think that it was here. I do think that it does change generation over generation. I do think we come from a generation of, we don't talk about emotions. Like, there's no time to be sad. Just buck up. You got this. Just push through. And it worked. And it works until it doesn't work.
Right.
And so now we're in a place of naming it. Yeah. Exactly. If there are, yes, and I still say, we joke with my kids, when they're getting on the field and they're like having a freak out. It's like, yeah, this isn't the time, buddy. Like, you got to just do your thing.
Right.
However,
walked off the horse, get back on the horse.
Get on the horse. Exactly. So it's not to say that we're just like, oh, we just coddle and we just only talk about emotions, but there is power in naming the emotions that we once didn't name. And I do think that there is power in starting to name some of these experiences, like trauma informed. It is knowing that, especially I talk about this with businesses a lot in terms of trauma informed leadership. What I'm really saying is the people that you're leading on your team are human beings. They have experiences. And if we can recognize that the way that we're speaking to them, we just are cognizant of the fact that this is a human being receiving what we're saying, we pay attention to our communication.
Right.
That's an example of being trauma informed. It doesn't mean we're coddling them or we're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? That's not what any of this is about. It's about giving it some verbiage so we can approach it differently.
Yeah. And I think, and I know you do this too, but you give it the verbiage and then you replace it with better verbiage. Like you replace it so that your brain can make that shift so that you aren't stuck in the trauma. And I think a lot
Yes.
of psychology has been, let's talk through it, talk through it, talk through it. And you have people that have been in, under psychiatric care for decades,
Years.
and they have never moved past that. And
Yes.
so shifting the neurology in the body, in the brain, as a man thinks, so is he. So is he. So, I mean, we have to shift how we're thinking in order to move past that trauma. So I know you are not saying that, when we name it, we're staying there. And the goal
Correct.
is to move past that, to reframe it. And so that we can be these competent adults and children,
Yeah.
that are contributing really well to society. So we don't feel like we have to be these overachievers stuck in this fawning space. Am I right in that?
Totally. Yes. And I think it's Dan Siegel. I think it was Dan Siegel who says, name it to tame it.
There you go.
That's the point, right? It's like we're naming it not so we can continue to be in it and be a victim of it. It's
Right.
about we're naming it so then we can take aligned action to move through it, to grow from it, right? Because I am a full believer in the idea that things happen in our life and I'm not toxic positivity and being like, oh, there's a purpose. I'm not doing that at all. But it's to say I'm having this experience. How do I want to grow from it? Which allows us to take some agency to say, I'm going to continue moving forward. I'm going to continue to evolve as an individual.
Right. And then we don't stay in this victim mentality where we're like, oh, this happened to me, so this is who I am. And so you can,
Right.
shift how you identify and, walk into who God created you to be instead of,
Yes.
who somebody
Yes.
else decided that, what your value was.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Before we got on the podcast, we were talking about gratitude. And so
Yeah.
I want to get into this because, gratitude, attitude of gratitude, we're praising God, we're saying thank you for everything, and it does shift. I mean, there's so many studies out there that it is shifting everything. And you were talking about that there's a lot of talk out there that you cannot have gratitude towards yourself.
Yes.
And so I would love to dive into that with you because I want to know what you say.
So I take issue with that statement. I'm just going to own it. And I know that other people will not agree. And again, totally respect that. Because here's the thing. I respect that traditional therapy and therapeutic ways of looking at gratitude and defining gratitude was appreciation. It's a relational appreciation, or an appreciation to something or someone. I take the perspective that there's also a relationship with self. So we can have an appreciation towards ourselves. And I think that it's actually really important, especially with that trauma-informed lens. How do we rebuild ourselves when we've been through, and it doesn't have to be a big T trauma, right? We can have smaller traumas. But how do we rebuild that foundational self if we're not taking the time to actually appreciate how we're showing up? Appreciate and honor and be grateful for the strengths that we're leaning into. I'm a huge believer in strengths-based approach to things. Like instead of just looking at what's wrong, let's look at what's going well and how can we continue to build upon that. And if we don't allow for that sense of gratitude to self, we're cutting off an entire perspective of, that reclamation of self when we've gone through trauma or we've gone through a part in our life where we're trying to rebuild and really reclaim who we are. I mean, we talk about self-compassion. That's compassion towards self. We talk about leadership, self-leadership. How do I lead myself? How do I show up? Self-gratitude. I think it's another prong. It's another pillar on the whole dynamic of having a relationship with ourselves. And again, to what we said before, we absolutely are here to commune with each other as human beings. It is about connection. And it doesn't have to be that or relationship with self. It can be an and, right?
So what does that look like when somebody has gratitude toward themselves?
I think it looks like, asking yourself, okay, how did I show up today? Who was I being? And paying attention to that and saying, I'm really, like, for me personally, I practice this every single day where I have gratitude for things in my personal world, my
Hmm.
professional world, and then I go to gratitude to self and it says, okay, Kamini, how did you show up in the last 24 hours? Who were you being? I'm really grateful that I leaned into my empathy. I'm really proud of myself and appreciate that I really exemplified and leaned into, bravery in
Hmm.
terms of parenting. It's not for the weak. I own it. But that would be an example of appreciation to self because what we're doing is we're reaffirming, who we are at our core, not just what we're doing. And especially for high achievers who measure so much by outcome and results,
Hmm.
this shifts into capital S self. I'm appreciating who I am as a person, as a being, not as a doer.
Right. And then you're not leaning into, well, I could have done better, to the condemnation or the guilt or those types of feelings. Like we're all about like, oh, I was just so stupid today. Like Laurie Hammer,
Yes.
you were so stupid. Like we say that to ourselves
Mhm.
all the time. That is not
Yeah.
gratitude. Instead, say, Laurie Hammer, that was a bang up job you did on that podcast today. you know,
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, I feel like, we're going back to scripture. As a man thinks, so is he, and life and death is in the power of the tongue. So if you're speaking words over yourself, I teach my clients this all the time. Speak life, whether it's to your children, to your spouse, to things around you, to yourself. Like tell
Mhm.
yourself you did a great job.
Yes.
Yes, I
Yes.
think it's so important. And it's not selfish to say, you did a great job today on that podcast. Nice job. Let's do it again tomorrow. Like I don't,
Yep.
and I mean, and it's not like you're being, I think that's the only thing you did that would make you very, very self-focused, right?
Right.
Right. But when you live an attitude of gratitude, a life of gratitude, you just see the beauty and all of the amazing things that are coming to you because you're living an amazing life, right? So you're grateful for
Yes.
the blessings that God has given you. You're grateful for the fact that you have a voice that speaks and you can
Yes.
share this message, with the world. So I'm in agreement with you. I think it's amazing.
And I love what you just said because when you have that attitude of gratitude, it creates that optimistic outlook, right?
Right.
And so if you're having that sense of gratitude and appreciation for self, you're building that muscle to know that you can show up and meet life's challenges. We know that life is going to throw these challenges at us. The thing is that we're building, and again, it's not selfish, it's selfful. It's we're building ourselves up to know that we can handle it. It's not going to be easy, but we have the ability to be resilient. We have the ability to trust ourselves. And I think that's what self gratitude is about. It's building that self trust, it's building that self acknowledgement, that ability to know that we're going to be okay.
Right. Right. I think we're so programmed to be like, oh, you can do better, you can do better, you can do better.
Yes.
Or,
Mhm.
you should never think about yourself in that way because everything that you have is from God. And it's true, right?
Yes.
Everything you have is
Yes.
from God. But he also gives us the ability to do all of those things. Right. And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
so being excited about the ability that whether you're a child and you're like, oh, I did it. I climbed the tree without mom and dad. Or, I had a client the other day and she was terrified to do the amino acid trialing where you're just opening up capsule, putting the amino acid under your tongue. You stare at me for 2 minutes and tell me how you feel. Like she was
Mm.
terrified, literally terrified to do it. Like she canceled her appointment, like, I don't know how many times. And when she got done, she's like, I did it. I said, yeah, tell yourself, great job. Like,
Mhm.
thank your body that it actually did it. Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she did. And she's like, I think I can do another one. Like, yes. Right.
Mm.
And so,
Yes.
it helps to dispel those, I hate to use the word irrational, but irrational fears that we have. We just let them ruminate and they're noisy and then we like own them.
Mhm.
And I think when you practice gratitude of other people, other things, and gratitude in yourself, that shifts that noise and dispels all that fear because we're not meant to have fear.
Yes, and also to your point, I mean, I do believe that we're all children of God, and if we are showing appreciation and gratitude to ourselves, we're in essence also appreciating God,
Right? We're created in
right?
the
And
image
so
of him. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I love the fact that you brought that up. So I would love to know in the comments, what do you guys think about, gratitude of self and how that works? Um, how are you implementing that with your clients? Like, we're talking about all these things, safety and those. I would imagine that makes a person feel safer too.
So I mean, the grand scheme. So if we're talking about gratitude, one of the things that I coach around a lot is this idea of gratitude and gratitude to self. And I will say that a lot of my clients are like, Kamini, that's weird. You want me to appreciate myself? I'm like, trust
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, we
This is
do.
where trust comes in. But to your point around, that idea of safety, I say to every single person who works with me that my North Star is emotional safety.
Mm,
Any relationship connection I have, that is my North Star. So when I'm working with my clients, that is what I'm trying to create, because when we feel that sense of safety, our nervous
yep.
system feels safe. That is when we can actually dive deep and we can unpack what needs to be unpacked, and then also make shifts and changes. To your point before, it's not about staying in victimhood. This is about how do we move ourselves forward.
Right.
And so it is about creating that sense of space where there is no judgment. There is no right way, wrong way. There's just, these are my experiences. This is what I'm thinking. This is how I'm feeling. And now, with my values identified and my needs identified, how is it that I actually want to move forward?
Right. Yeah. It's just showing up in a whole new way for life in general. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
And it's showing up in a way that you're showing up for yourself. And as you do that, you can show up for others then, right?
right.
Because and that's the thing that I think that gets lost. It's like, well, I'm doing for, if I do any of this for me, then I'm not focusing on everybody else. And I challenge that to say, if you show up for yourself and you're fully connected with yourself, that relationship that you have that you're trying to create is going to blossom even more.
Right. Right. And if we're going to go back to scripture, so in the Bible, it says to love your neighbor as yourself. So if you're not
Yes.
loving yourself, if you're not grateful for this life that you have, the way your body functions, the way your brain functions, the gifts that you have, love your neighbor as yourself. So if you're not loving yourself, it's really hard and you're to love the next person, because we all, maybe this will be controversial too, but we'll go there. So all of our cells have a frequency. We're created with frequency. God spoke and everything came into being. It's a frequency. And so when you're negative or you're not treating yourself well, your frequency of every single cell in your body goes down. We're supposed to vibrate at a frequency up here, and we end up with a
Mm-hmm.
frequency down here. And so when your
Mm-hmm.
frequency is low, you don't have the energy to give to the person next to you, to your neighbor, to your family, to whatever it might be. And that's when we end up sick, when all
Mm-hmm.
of that is at such a low level. And so
Mm-hmm.
I believe that when we're speaking well to ourselves, we're speaking life over ourselves, over everything in our life, that raises our frequency, because God created us to be at a higher frequency. That transfers over to our neighbor, and love is the highest frequency. If we're going to measure emotions,
Yep.
love is the highest frequency. And so that frequency then can transfer over to everyone else. And so I feel like that plays a huge part in everything too.
I am right there with you.
All right, girl.
It does. It plays a huge part. And I think, we say like emotions are almost like a contagion, right? If we
Mm-hmm.
walk into a room where that frequency is low, most often we'll leave and we're like, man, I'm really tired. Like I'm drained. I don't feel good.
Yeah.
It's because we were around that low frequency.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter, she's 19, and she'll just be like, I don't like that person. And I'm like, why
Mm-hmm.
don't you like that person? And because she just picks up on things so quick. And I'm always like, oh, give him the benefit of the doubt. And she's like, no,
Right.
that person's
Right.
probably a serial killer, and I'm not going anywhere near him. So she may be a little, exaggerating on that. But my point is that you can feel it, like you're walking into the room, or, somebody walks past you and you're like, woof, I don't know about that
Yes.
person,
Yeah.
in the airport or
Yes.
something. You're like, I don't want to sit by that person on the plane. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's other people you're just drawn to. You're just
You're just
drawn
drawn
to,
to their
and you
energy.
like love to
Absolutely.
be in their presence because you feel so good when you're
Yes.
there, and you can't wait to see them again. And you're like, oh my gosh, I need a, whatever fix it is, a Julie fix or whatever. I need to go see them. Just because they make you feel so good. And,
Yes.
and I want to be that person, for people to be like, I really want to be around Laurie because I feel so good when I'm around her, and, it's happy and it's grateful and those things. And I think unless you're feeling gratitude towards yourself and everything else, and who you're created to be, like that just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. Yes. I'm with you. That's like my intention too. I want to be that person.
Right? Yeah, I want to be the fun house. I want our house to be where everybody loves to be.
It is something that I do strive for, to be that person where people feel seen and just heard. And they feel good. They just feel whole and complete. And there's not really a whole lot of verbiage to go with it. It's just like, I just feel.
And do that without fawning.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So what does it look like to be that without fawning?
And that's like the work in progress for those of us who've done it our whole life, right? And it really is. And I hold myself accountable to, it's not about people pleasing. It's to be with people, to be with them in the moment. And, there's a difference between empathy, compassion, and sympathy, right? Empathy is I'm with you in your experience. Compassion is I'm with you and also I'm not going to fix it. And then sympathy is, I feel a little bit bad for you.
Right.
I try to balance the empathy, compassion component. And that's what that means to me. Instead of, over functioning or over giving or trying to fix it or people please. Instead, I'm with the people that I'm with, like that I'm sitting with. I'm actually with them. Mm-hmm. I'm listening. I'm in the experience with them. And I'm really trying to practice compassion and hear them. And I try really hard not to go into fix it mode, right? It's just, I share with me what you're thinking, share with me what your thoughts are, share with me what you think are the options. I do this. I really hold myself accountable as a parent to do this because I think, the fixer in me, the people pleaser in me would immediately try to jump into, okay, this is how we can solve this. And so in the way that I do it is I slow down. I really pace myself with it where it's like, okay, we're not going to rush. We're going to breathe. We're going to, I breathe before I speak. Like I consciously am like deep breath from the diaphragm. We're not going to like pay attention to that for a second before we even respond to this. Mm-hmm. And I really lean into the idea of when I'm with people, it's about pacing with them, right? We pace with them and then eventually we can maybe step into leading them, but we got to pace with them first.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is so good. So good. I've loved this conversation. It has been great. We'll have to do another conversation. Where can my audience find you?
I am on the web at kaminiwood.com and then social media, they can find me Facebook and Instagram with the handle It's Authentic Me.
Awesome. Kamini, this has been phenomenal. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I love your mission. Everyone else listening, I know that you know somebody who needs this. So I want you to share this podcast with somebody. I know you know somebody. So make sure you share this. I appreciate each and every one of you very, very much. God bless you. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Take Back My Brain. If today's episode helped you connect with hope or direction, I want you to follow the show, leave us a review, and share it with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to start your own healing journey, explore our courses and our coaching programs at lauriehammer.com/store. So until next time, remember, you cannot medicate away a nutrient deficiency, and healing your brain isn't just possible, it's powerful.